Mazzy, when did you start your channel?
Uh, 2017, but I didn't make my second video for about a year and a half later, so mid 2018, actually, my second video.
The gap between the first and the second, did you just feel a little bit, what was the reason
It
for
was
that?
just, I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed for 30 years, and it's just, I got busy. It's simple as that, and nothing more, nothing nefarious. I wasn't bored with it. That was it.
It's funny because people sometimes talk about starting a channel, and I think it can be a little intimidating because you're out there then, and that wasn't really a part of it.
Not at all.
You don't appear to be
No.
worried about talking about things.
No, because I would promote for work. We'll get into that later, maybe. So.
Okay. Why did you start your channel? What was the motivation?
I was watching, there was a channel I saw of a guy who doesn't make videos anymore. I forgot his name now. He was in Germany. He was into jazz, a young guy in the jazz. And I just was searching YouTube. And it might have been when I was looking maybe to buy a new turntable. I forgot. I was looking for records and I saw a video. Then, of course, another one shows up and another one. And I heard people talk about vinyl community. And so I decided I have this record collection. I have my own stories. I love talking music. I never stop talking music. And so that's it. And so I did it.
Great. Where are you based?
I am now based in Seattle, originally a native San Franciscan. I moved to Seattle in 2014.
What's your experience been like? So you've had the channel for a while. You've got lots of subscribers. What has surprised you about having a VC channel?
Well, first of all, what I found that you have to be consistent is consistency. But I love, and it sounds like a cliche, I met these great people and in person finally, like in the last 2 years, I've been to London, New York, Austin, Los Angeles, Vancouver. And in each place I've gotten to set up meetings with people, some who make other vinyl videos and music videos, and just sometimes people fans. And a couple times going back to San Francisco, I go there every 2 or 3 times a year anyway. And one of my favorite newish stores for me is Tunnel Records out near the Great Highway. They have now 2 other satellite stores. But I remember mentioning I was going to go there at whatever date it was, Tuesday at noon, and about 5 or 6 people were there. Like, I felt like it was a meet and greet. It was funny, and people who just were subscribers that lived in the area and came and wanted to chat music. So I love that. I've met great people around these various cities, like here in Vancouver, like you. And I've seen you on YouTube, and meeting in person, you kind of already know a little bit about you. So it's not like just meeting someone in a cafe the first time or at a singles bar. Are there singles bar anymore? I can't even speak. Singles bar anymore?
That may be a loaded question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay.
As a married man. Other major interests. So what other things besides vinyl?
Well, I'm a photography buff. I used to take pictures and make like Super 8 films and 16mm films in high school and college. But I fell into meeting a photographer and started taking her portfolio out, an advertising and commercial photographer. And it just kind of grew. Another photographer called me up, you take my book out, and it turned out to be a business that worked out really well for me for 38 years. And I found out that, I play guitar badly for over 50 years. So I'm like an artist without a discipline. I'm a terrible guitar player. I can take pictures, but I like being around artists, and I found my niche is better promoting other artists. That's why the YouTube thing is unique, because I'm kind of promoting myself or my music interest. And it is weird putting yourself out there. It's easy for me to promote the photographers I represented, because I can say great things about other people. And when you say things about yourself good, people think it's egotistical and self-centered. But you have to get past that, and just let it flow.
You're also, I think, from watching your videos, a big movie buff, right?
Very much so. Again, art, it's all related to arts. I mean, I go to museums. I miss San Francisco because San Francisco has great museums. No offense, Seattle. Your Sam Museum isn't anywhere near the MoMA or the diem or the museums down there, or the New York museums, or the Mopop, which is, I don't even know what that is anymore. personally. But so art, photography, film, big time. And one of my best friends ran the Surf Theater in San Francisco, which was San Francisco at one point when I was in college and even high school had the most independent screens in any city in America per capita, more than New York, more than anyone else. And my friend who managed it, I remember they would have the Kurosawa films, the Sajat Rai Indian films, Truffaut, all the foreign cinema from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and I'd go see 5 nights a week sometimes, all the things. So it was like the best education. So yeah.
Okay, we're going to move into the 10 rapid fire questions. These are the ones that I'm going to be asking all the channels and people that I want to answer them. And then I'm going to follow that up with 5 custom questions, Mazzy tailored questions. So first off, what record are you really enjoying these days? What I would call a front of the pile record.
I've been going back a lot to David Sylvian. I mean, Blemish, it came out in 2005, I believe. And I got into him my first trip to London in 1978. He was in a band with his brother Japan. And they were kind of like rock and roll, glammy. And I liked them. I didn't love them. But then they got really mature, like with the tin drum, or did some cool artsy things. And then, of course, Red Tree Crow. I'm probably dyslexic in the name. But his records, when he left Virgin, his stuff on Virgin was really cool. I like his deep, dark, brooding voice. And that's what I like about people like Nick Cave and Leonard Cohen. And I like those dark, depressing things. But he did those records starting in 2005, Blemish, when he started his own label, that are like electronic, but a lot of things just like reverb, tremolo guitar hitting against an amp, and is almost poetry. And I just got into him again. They've been finally reissuing all his independent records and the remix albums, which I love. So he's been on my mind a lot the last couple of years with the reissues. David Sylvian.
A favorite concert experience of yours, memorable one?
Well, the two I always cite are turned out to be big shows. The Last Waltz in '76. It was $25. And I remember one of my best friends who managed the record store I worked with said, "I'm not paying $25. That's outrageous." Because tickets then were like $5, maybe $6. The Rolling Stones at Winterland in '72 was $5.50 with Stevie Wonder. So $25. It didn't include, though, Thanksgiving dinner. So that was and it turned out to be a great show. And then in 2002, I went to see the Concert for George since being a big Beatle collector, it was one of those beautiful, emotional, spiritual. I'm not religious, but obviously with the Indian music and Ravi Shankar, and if you've seen the documentary in that film, it was so beautiful. So those are the big, famous shows, and then there's others hit and miss here.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about those two shows. I'm very familiar with both of them just from watching the.
Yeah, they both had documentary or concert films. Yeah,
they're so good. A favorite Bowie record?
Ziggy Stardust, just because not 5 years. The song off that Starman, that one. That's the first song I ever heard by David Bowie. I didn't know the albums before that. And so I bought a ticket to see him at Winterland. He played at Winterland. Winterland holds 5,000 people. 500 people showed up that first show, which to me is really weird. San Francisco didn't embrace him right away, because that same week, I think, he played that Santa Monica that became the big soundtrack and movie, whatever. So I don't know why San Francisco didn't embrace him. But so Ziggy Stardust has to be, yeah.
One of the saddest songs ever?
There's a bunch. Obviously, hearing John Lennon sing like "Beautiful Boy" and the stuff because of the situation after that album came out. But I always like. It's sad, but to me, dark romantic songs can be sad. And "Into Your Arms" by Nick Cave on Boatman's Call. I just love that song. It's moody, it's dark, that piano. I think it's sad, but I like sad songs. They make me feel better.
One of the most joyful songs?
My Sweet Lord. Again, I used to say I was atheist. I think I'm agnostic because I'm not hedging my bets. That's what Woody Allen would say, just in case. And My Sweet Lord, even though I just think it's a really upbeat, fun, feel-good song, you know?
Mm.
Like, oh, happy day.
Yeah. A perfect first record of the day and why?
Um, Depends on the day. You know, obviously, Saturday, Sunday mornings are different than other days. That's off the top of my head, and this is rapid fire. A perfect first record. You know, I'm going to say um, the 1970, is it 71, after the Gold Rush, Neil Young.
Mm.
I love this. That's my favorite Neil Young record, and I love the sound of that record. That open up, I can't even sing, but the acoustic guitar he gets on that record, and I love that record.
Mm.
So Neil Young.
Awesome. One of the most underrated bands or artists ever.
They're different. Aren't there different levels of underrated things? Two bands that seem Beatley, but they're not Beatley. They're World Party and Super Furry Animals. I'm going with them because the Welsh band Super Furry. I mean, they were big in the UK and obviously in Wales. They have a cult following in America. I like they mix that Beatley thing with electronica, with experimental art rock, and then World Party just because. I mean, I like. I mean, I always talk about World Party, especially. He sounded like the Stones, the Beatles, and Dylan, and Prince, but for somehow made it sound like it's original instead of being a copy band. And he and Carl Wallinger did that really well, I think. Rest in peace, Carl.
Mm. Van Morrison or Jackson Browne?
Van Morrison. Even though I think he can be one of the biggest wankers in the world, but I mean, but I like Jackson Browne. I like Jackson Browne up until Lawyers in Love. Okay, then I kind of, hit and miss. But those first albums are great. But the Van Morrison records, the first ones, also the 70s, the Warner Brothers stuff especially. Some of the Polygram stuff I like. But yeah, Van Morrison.
I know this isn't my segment, but I also think Van Morrison was strong, even though the production was a little bit 80s-ish.
He got into that too, like 80s.
Inarticulate Speech of the Heart, Poetic Champions compose.
Yeah. What's the double one? I really like that double one with the kind of orange or a khaki
Avalon
cover.
Sunset?
No, khaki cover is a doubles CD, maybe. Maybe it was a single.
Oh, Hymns to the Silence.
Hymns of the I love that record.
That's a great record.
And if I was buying all his records up until, and I know people hate me when I talk about political stuff, which it shouldn't be political, but the whole anti-vax bullshit of him and Eric Clapton, just fuck you, Van Morrison. You can edit this out if you want.
Van, you're no longer the man.
But Van Morrison was the last show I saw before lockdown. He played like 4 nights at Yoshi's in Oakland, and it was great, a small club. And it was very jazzy. It did like jazzy versions of it. It was really good. So I like Van Morrison.
Joni Mitchell or Aretha Franklin?
If I had to pick one, Aretha first. But I mean, they're not even the same.
Well, that's intentional.
Yeah, of course. I pick Aretha just because. But I love Joni Mitchell. Yeah.
So sometimes if you can't really choose or it seems unfair, you can also call that one out.
Well, Joni Mitchell's a better morning record if you're talking about that. Aretha's like afternoon kick-ass night record. I saw Joni Mitchell a couple of times. Unfortunately, I never saw Aretha. So,
3 must-have desert island discs. So if you were to take 3 with you, what would they absolutely have to be?
Well, I'm going to just go with my favorite bands, and just because it would be Arthur by the Kinks, it would be Revolver by the Beatles, and it would be. This is where it depends on the mood I'm in. I'm going to pick Fifth Dimension by the Byrds, 5D by the Byrds. But sometimes it's the Cosmic Cowboy one with the horse instead of, or Younger Than Yesterday. It's those 3 in a row, like 66, 7, 8 Byrds. Perfect time. The greatest American band ever, the Byrds.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to get into the plus five. These ones I've kind of customized these specific for you. Okay, so we talked about this before we even sat down a little bit, but favorite Grateful Dead era?
Oh God. Well, the beginning. I mean, I would say I'm gonna make it my own since it's my own question. Studio Records 1970 because they made the two great American Beauty and
Working Man.
Workman's Dead. I should know this. Yeah, Workman's Dead. But live, I first saw them in '68, but '68 to '72. So to me, when people ask me how should I start with the Grateful Dead, I always say Europe '72, just because you get the great live stuff, even though they've fixed it in studio and did overdubs and made their vocals sound in tune. You get a little bit also of this 1970 feel and great songs. And it's live, but it's 3 records. It's a great introduction. So 68 to 72.
Perfect. Okay. Street Legal or Shot of Love?
Street Legal.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, that's very easy. That's a very easy one.
That one would put me in a pretzel. I love Shot of Love.
Well,
but, yeah.
It's funny. Street Legal came out my first trip to England, to Europe. I was backpacking, and after I'd been working in a record store, I remember it was the first. I was there in Europe for 3 months. First time that I wasn't around new releases for like records in a decade. And so I remember being in a record store in Amsterdam where you sit at the bar and they could play records and they'd give you headphones. And the 3 records that had come out while I was on my traveling around Europe that I hadn't heard yet and I listened to were the entire Darkness on the Edge of Town, Ry Cooder's Jazz, and Street Legal. And I saw Dylan in Rotterdam on that tour and then back. That's the big like Vegas show stuff. I like that stuff. A lot of people criticize that, Vegas-y, big band, Neil Diamond type production, but I enjoy it.
And that was the same era, was it not, as the recently released 74 or the band?
No, it's a Budokan one.
Oh, it's the Budokan one,
Yeah,
right.
74 is a band.
Right,
This is
right.
78.
Right, 78,
Yeah.
got it. A favorite record producer and why?
A lot of it's funny. A lot of people will say George Martin because of the Beatles, but he worked with the Beatles, and I was never a fan of him with anyone else really. America, I mean, or whoever, anyone else he worked with. I mean, he did great records, and I would say, that's a good question. I like David Rubinson, who was based out of San Francisco. He bought Columbia Studios that became the Automat. He produced the first Moby Grape. He produced the Santana records, Abraxas, the first one, the third one. He produced a lot of Columbia stuff at the time. He produced the Pointer Sisters, when they were like That's a Plenty in the first album, Blue Thumb. I mean, it's not necessarily my favorite, but I just, for some reason, lately I've been seeing his name on a lot of stuff, mostly the Columbia stuff at the time. Tom Wilson and Bob John. Tom Wilson, who did like the Dylan, a lot of the like Blonde on Blonde, my favorite Dylan album, and he did the Mothers of Invention, did some jazz stuff. He was one of the first big African American producers. If you saw the Dylan film recently, he's the black guy sitting on the console, or that character. I mean, I'm trying to look at your records to remind me of producers right now. God. Anyway, he produced Velvet Underground too, Bob Johnson, I believe, right? Or it's Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson.
Yeah. I hate to interplay them because they both Leonard Cohen, so.
Great. A live music experience that made you teary or cry? Overcome with emotion?
Even though it's not a sad show, I think when I first saw Paul McCartney in Wings, the Wings Over America, and the George Harrison Dark Horse tour first in '80, it was his voice was terrible, it wasn't a great experience. But all of a sudden seeing one of the Beatles for the first time, being like the Beatle guy. It was really emotional. Like all of a sudden, I'm getting like verklempt now. In that mode, seeing the Beatles a couple times over the years, seeing Paul McCartney. Remember, I took my son to see Paul in San Jose, where he opened up with twice. Once with Magic Mystery, I think, and once with Hello Goodbye. This is before he kind of lost his voice, and it was so emotional. It's like seeing a Beatle do a Beatles songs. I mean, God, it was really emotional. I'm sure there are others I can't think of right now in terms of that are actually where the performance was more emotional. That was just sake of seeing, this. The reason I'm here is because of the Beatles. I mean, you can't, nothing else, no one else. So that was it.
Great. We'll leave it there. Thanks, Mazzy.
Thank you.